Irene, alcoholic. Alice, thank you so much. It really is an honor and privilege to be here. And what I love about this program, it really makes me grow and makes me do things that maybe even a couple years ago I wasn't doing. So I love the fact that this is just an 11-step topic. Um, First off, I'm just going to share, just to qualify just very quickly, and why when I first read this, I was thinking, God, when did they put this in? Because I've been around the program for a while, and I don't remember seeing this part. And what I love about this program, and especially in 12 and 12, as well as the big book, is it reminds me of like I still have room to grow, and I love that. So first off, my sobriety date is actually today, September 30th, 1989. So I have 36 years today. Uh, and obviously, this last week, I've done a lot of like, God, what was it like? And what happened, what it's like now. Just qualify briefly. I was a falling down drunk. I was violent. I've had people tell me, Irene, you hit hard and you're ugly drunk. Um, I was totally out of control, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. I only thought about myself. I had that old idea that I'm not hurting anyone, you know. And I wake up today and I'm thinking, God, no one's actively hating me right now. I love that I'm not hurting anyone right now. And I am just so grateful for this program. And I was someone who was a chronic relapser as well. I would have weeks and months, even years, and then go back out because I was at my noon meeting today and the topic was about surrender. I just couldn't surrender. I couldn't concede to my innermost self that I was an alcoholic. Um, and I know when I drank after those 4.5 years of sobriety where I had a sponsor, I was going to meetings, although at the end I had stopped going to meetings. I know that day for sure I did not pray. I did not meditate that day. And I was not obviously, working with anyone, but I know that day I did not ask God what I normally do now every day, which is, God, please keep me sober and I don't care how you do it. For me, it's just a release of, that I have to figure out what I'm going to do for my sobriety. Sometimes things come out of left field and, oh, I wasn't planning to do that. But someone will ask me, for example, to share at a meeting, or I just got a call 10 minutes before this meeting started from someone from Pennsylvania who's a newcomer. And it was like, oh, I remember you. I mean, it's great, and what I liked about this passage was to make me a channel. Um, and then just again, reading it again, first off, he wanted to become a channel. Then he asked for the grace to bring love, forgiveness, harmony, truth, faith, hope, light, and joy to every human being he could. And when I read that, when I was rereading this, I thought, it really is for me. It's like, oh my God, what an order. I can't go through with it because when I wake up, unfortunately still, I'm not thinking, what can I do to pack, the most into life? What can I do for anyone else? My head will still go with, God, what's it about, about me? And I'm like, that's why I have to get a routine. And my routine in the morning is to read daily reflections, to read uh, more, spiritual books, and then I say my third and seventh step prayers. And as I said before, I also, ask God, please keep me sober, and I don't care how you do it. And what I love about this passage, it again reminds me that my meditation is not about like for me to feel, in the zone and feeling great about myself, although that's one of the byproducts. It really is so that I can be of service to others, so that I can be a channel. And I'm supposed to bring faith, hope, light, joy to another human being. And again, it's like, it really is like, when the book talks about that we have to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to others, like I have that image of fitting myself. It's like, oh, sometimes it's hard and I'm like trying to struggle and because it doesn't come naturally to me, because I'm a selfish, self-centered alcoholic. So for me to think of others, it really is like a fit and an exercise, really. And so I, that 11 step, especially the meditation. A couple years ago, my sponsor said, you're not meditating. She said, not to be crass or anything, but she said, you're constipated when it comes to meditation. You're not doing it, and we're seeing the result of that you're taking actions that are not, always spiritually fit. You're taking actions that are sometimes, based on fear because I'm not God-centered. Um, and that was like a wake-up call to me that, you know what, I got to do some meditation here. So I have different tools that I use. I use like the insight timer, that, I set it for a time and I will meditate, and, I'm still not good about really lengthy meditation. Although, now that we moved from Los Angeles to the Bay Area, my wife and I were doing classes on meditation, and I'm like, okay, I can actually do like 20 minutes or 30 minutes. Wow, I'm surprised I could do that. So that's been actually really surprising for me because, like I said, my head will go into self, almost like in a moment. And again, one of those things that I love about this program is, the principles. The big book talks about, you know, the 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 biggest demonstration of our principles are how we are in the world. Something to the effect, I'm paraphrasing it, how we carry ourselves into our work, our families, um, how we are about in the world. And one of those demonstrations I saw was at my Sunday meeting I go to. It's my Sunday meeting is a 12 and 12 study. So this guy comes up, he comes to the meeting early. I'm a greeter at the meeting, so I'm there early. And this guy says, you know what? I didn't do my meditation. I need to go to the quiet room here and do my meditation. So he's there trying to meditate. And then this guy comes in and sits next to him and starts talking to him. And what I liked about it was that the guy didn't say, hey, can't you see I'm trying to meditate? Can't you see I'm trying to have peace? And instead, he talks to the guy. And what happens that the guy shared at the meeting was that, he hadn't been going to meetings. He's been getting a little bit crazy. And the guy was able, maybe even, even though he had maybe a couple seconds of meditation time, he was able to channel himself and be there for the guy who was suffering. He was sober 2 years, but from my experience, I've been in those situations where I'm sober and I'm crazy. I haven't been doing the program. I've been, lax on my practice. And I love the fact that he didn't get annoyed with this guy interrupting his meditation. Instead, he listened to the guy and was there for him. And so that's what I love about this topic is that the purpose of my meditation is for me, yes, to get closer to God, to feel centered, to feel, that I have a purpose. But that's not the end of it for me. For me, that's not the end result of it. My my practice is, okay, God, where do you want me to be? Where do you want me to be for that person? It may be someone in the program, it may be someone outside the program. Um, and so I've loved the fact that the focus is, bringing joy to every human he could. Um, and, it really is a tall order, like I said. Sometimes it is what an order, I can't go through with it because, you know, sometimes I think I have too much on my plate. What's going on with me? I got to deal with my stuff first before I can deal with you. No, it's the opposite. Like, I need to talk to you, find out what's going on with you. And then something happens that my stuff gets smaller and smaller and smaller. It's like the little plans and designs that I had are little, and that I could be there for other people. And one of the things I have enjoyed from moving from Los Angeles to the Bay Area is that I get to meet new people in meetings. I've been trying to go more and more in-person meetings. For a long time, I was doing Zoom, but I really do miss that touch, that those hugs and just talking to people in meetings. And I get to meet new people, And there was a woman, at my noon meeting who was back in town, and she was also like me, a relapser. And, I get to share with her, that there's hope, that someone who was a chronic relapser can get long-term sobriety. Um, and, I have not done this, program perfectly at all. Even during these 36 years of sobriety, when I was about 15 years sober, I stopped going to meetings. I stopped really talking to a sponsor, stopped praying, stopped meditating. Thank God I didn't drink again, but I stopped. And I forgot that my primary purpose is to stay sober and help another alcoholic achieve sobriety. And I need to have that reminder that I'm here for others. It's not for, I get my stuff and then split. Like I once had a sponsor say, I got my stuff and now I can split, No, it's I can stay so that I can be there for others. And again, it was funny how I got back to the program. I was at work one day and I had my big book in my desk drawer, and for some reason or another, I thought, God, I haven't been going to meetings. Why do I even have the big book? So I took it out of my desk drawer, put it in a box. Then later on, I thought, that seems a little sacrilegious, just sort of like dumping it. So I put it back in my desk drawer at work. And later on that afternoon, I had forgotten my work ID, which was very important because it got me into, I was a public defender, I was a defense attorney. So that ID got me in and out of the jails. So it was very valuable to have. So I called my next door neighbor at work and I asked him, hey, can you please put my county ID in my desk drawer? And he did. And then the next day he said, I don't mean to pry, Irene, but I saw the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous in the drawer. And initially I was a little bit embarrassed, thinking, God, it's like, here's this guy, he's really a top-notch attorney. I'm a little bit embarrassed, but you know what? For some reason I said, yeah, I'm actually a recovering alcoholic. I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. And he said, God, it's like, I can't stop drinking and drugging. Would you please take me to a meeting? And I was like, whoa, okay, yeah, I'll do that. And again, one of those God shots, it's like how you feel connected because in that moment where I put the the big book from the box back into the desk drawer, I had no idea why I was doing that, And again, I love the fact that I can be guided, and I want to believe that I'm being guided by a higher power. Sometimes when I don't even know why I'm doing certain things. And I told him I would meet him at a meeting. Unfortunately, he didn't show up at the meeting, but I did. And I realized, oh my God, you know what? I'm in trouble. I haven't been going to meetings, nor do I want to go to meetings. I'm not in the spiritual space at all. So I called a friend of mine who was in the program, who was always asking me, hey, we haven't seen you at meetings. And I would lie and say, I'm fine, I've been going, but I wasn't going. And I called her and I said, you know what, I've been lying to you. I haven't been going to meetings. Um, and so she said, look, let's look for a meeting. And, that's how I got back into meetings uh, when I was about 15 years sober. Because I had left, had not gone for about a year. I think that entire year, maybe I went to 2 meetings that entire year. So I was crazy, I was untreated alcoholism. For me, my default is being restless, irritable, and discontented, you know. And to go from being that state of untreated alcoholism to where I care about you and my fellows, that requires God because I can't do it by myself. I can't walk there, you know. I have to have some connection to my higher power that guides me to lets me know, okay, this is what you have to do, that I have to be a channel for others. Um, and and I love also the individual words they're talking about here, love, forgiveness, harmony, truth, faith, hope, light, joy. And I think, what I talk about is one of forgiveness. There are times where I will still get pissed off at someone, angry at someone, and they don't even know they did anything wrong. It's like, oh my God, it's like my number one defect. I mean, we were reading, I think it was the eighth step past week, was the pain of envy. I'm like, oh my God, I so relate to that. It's like, why do I envy so many people? And and when I'm envious of other people, then I'm not in gratitude, you know? And so there was a guy who I've been envious. I'm like, oh, should I? And I, you know what? What I did instead was I texted him. I said, oh my God, I'm so glad for you, blah, blah, blah. Never letting on that I've been envious of him because he's a friend of mine. I mean, it's like, that's the thing that drives me crazy is that I'm envious of my friends. So it's even more embarrassing when that happens, you know? Um, and that I could just I don't know why I thought I needed to forgive him or maybe forgive me or whatever, but I needed to make it right. I needed to like, okay, God, you know, I have to be joyful for him. Like, congratulate him for, a job well done, and not be envious. Um, so for me, again, it's bringing those things to each human being that I can. And, it's definitely a challenge. I've been married been with my wife for 25 years. So we've had our ups and downs. Um, and, recently, we're going through some health scares and stuff. And she's taking a decision that I don't particularly agree with, And so, for a couple of days, I was fighting, fighting, fighting. Like, you got to do it my way. You got to do it my way. And then after a while, I'm like, you know what? She doesn't. She doesn't have to do it my way. I may think, God, it's like for me, it's so obvious what the answer is, you know, but she has another way of looking at things. And then the other thing I have to rely on too is she has her own higher power, and it's not me, it's not me. And I love that third step prayer as well as the third step, discussion where it talks about, if people would only do what I think they should do, they would be happy. I'm not doing it to be a control freak. I'm not doing it, just to, be in total charge of everything. I just think that you would be happy, as well. But that's not the case. So I've had to let that go. And again, my sponsor talks a lot about God with skin on. So there are times where I just can't be by myself, just meditating and praying by myself in a room in the corner in a dark room because yeah, sometimes that works, but sometimes I just got to reach out. And I call Alice's sponsor, who's wonderful. And, I'm telling her about all this stuff. And, after a while, we're just laughing. I mean, that's just the power of this program. And I think the power that God has given us, that I get to interact with you and that you bring healing to me and I try to bring healing to you, and I think that power of laughter is great because we can laugh at ourselves, at, my defects, my, like Alice's sponsor talks about my deformities of character, which are so true. It's like my deformities, you know, um, and I just love the fact that I don't have to be perfect at this, and again, when I was reading this section, I thought, oh my God, that's for the people who are really high up. I mean, I could never reach that level. But I'm like, all they're asking is I try, just put in some effort, try. And I love that. Practice, like these principles and that's practice means that you keep at it and at it. I mean, I'm a big baseball fan, for example, and you see these guys and they try to hit the ball, and you're a successful batter if you hit one out of three times. So you're really failing two out of three times. And they will pay you lots of money for failing at one, three times. And I think of that because I don't have to be perfect at this. I don't have to say, oh, that's only for people who are really super spiritual, but I could never even try that. I can put my effort into it and be there for others, and just being open, uh, and just saying, okay, God, whoever comes in my life today, I'm open to trying to help them. What do they need? And I love my first sponsor used to say, we're just one of God's kids trying to help another God's kid, and that I'm not above you or below you, but maybe there's something I can do to help you, you know? Um, and again, I heard someone, and it was so true. I have not memorized, the St. Francis prayer, and I wish I could, and I keep trying at it. But it is one of my favorite prayers. I have it everywhere. And this guy was speaking at one of my meetings, and he said, "God, what is it?" He's like, "I can memorize, the a biggest hit from the 1970s. I know every lyric for that song, but I can't remember the St. Francis prayer." I'm like, that's so true. It's like, oh my God, yeah. So just, I need to put some effort into it. But again, I love the fact that the focus is not on me. Like, I need to be forgiven before I forgive you. No, I have to forgive you first. That I have to love you first before, I receive any kind of love, And I just never understood that. I never understood how that would work. Um, but, uh, back to, again, this passage that again, it just focuses on that, I believe that we weren't put here to be by ourselves. Uh, when I was new, uh, I remember hearing about loners and Alcoholics Anonymous. And I remember thinking, oh my God, that's me. I'm a loner. I should, wherever this loner group is, that's what I should belong to. And I didn't know loners and Alcoholics Anonymous were like people who could not make, in-person meetings at the time, like there were people in Antarctica. And I just thought, oh, I'm a loner. I should go to that, that group. Um, but I've learned from this program that I'm not alone. And it would be actually you know, an injury for, and not to be bragging or anything. Again, back to that humility. I'm, neither the worst nor or the, the best, but I know what my true abilities are and I know my true weaknesses. But for me to be a loner in the world would be such a disservice, I think, to God and to my fellows, because I need to be out there. I may not be the most social person. I'm normally an introvert, but I can talk to people one on one. I can share with them, what's going on. And I'm also a good listener too. It's like I don't always have to be the one who's like the social butterfly and out speaking with everyone, but I can listen to you. And especially if you're hurting, I can be there for you. And I've learned that about myself, that I can be there for others, and just listen. That and I love again, this program where it talks about the power of pause, because I love that, because I'm so bad at it. Sometimes I will still say something that I should not say. My head will say, don't say it, don't say it, don't say it. And hear myself saying it, But I love the fact that there is that tool, the power of pause. And like, okay, and at my meeting today, this guy was saying, like, supposedly you gain a second for each year that you've been sober in terms of pause. So supposedly now I have 36 seconds of pause. I don't know if that's the case or not, but I would love to think it is. Um, and to be able to just say something that's kind, compassionate, instead of judgmental, that I have to rule your life. And again, if my wife were here, she would say, well, why don't you try that? Because I fail at it all the time, But again, it's one of those ideals that I want to be able to, like, okay, let me just listen. Does it really need to be said right now? Does it have to be said by me right now? You know, I love all those things, and that I could just pause and just say, God, what is the kindest thing to say right now, or to do, or be right now? Sometimes, like, my sponsor is famous for just holding people's hands, and just through touch, she loves, she could be talking to someone else, but just touching your hand, you feel connected with her. And I love that. And she's such a great teacher for that. I'm not sure how many more minutes. I have about 10 more minutes. I'm not sure how much more I could do, but I just want to say how uh, honored I am to be a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, that you have given someone who was a suffering alcoholic before I even picked up a drink. I was suffering. I didn't know how to be in the world. I was miserable. I thought about myself all the time. I didn't want to live. Um, and I remember I actually started coming to Alcoholics Anonymous when I was 18 years old, and I finally got sober when I was 28. But I remember being 18 years old and feeling like I was 80 years old. I felt so old. I felt like, no, I have no more life in me. And now I'm going to be 65 years old, and I'm really enjoying life. I am so lucky to be sober, sane, um, and alive, because there were so many times there was really close, I had some really close calls there, but I could be there for others. And I just want to be that channel for others. And I don't know if we had some newcomers here or not, but what I do want to leave you with is, again, that hope, the hope and joy. Because if I didn't have hope when I was going to meetings, and also joy when I was new, I remember being so, you know, dour and so serious. And the first time I heard myself laugh, I was amazed. I'm like, oh my God, I'm actually laughing. And that's what kept me coming back to the roots of Alcoholics Anonymous, was that the laughter, it was like that music of Alcoholics Anonymous is that laughter. The fact that we can share about our imperfections, like the more imperfect you are and you share about it, I love you more, and because it's like, oh my God, you're like me, it's like I can, share about something that's so embarrassing now in my sobriety. I'm like, oh my God, I did this, I said this. And I shared about it this past week with my sponsor and one of my AA sisters, and we just laughed about it. Yes, it was not the right thing to do. Yes, it was wrong, but we laughed about it because now we have tools of what I can do. I can now say, God, okay, that was wrong. I'm now supposed to bring, compassion to the situation. I'm supposed to bring forgiveness to the situation. Um, well, how can I make it right? And um, I love this program and I love all of you. So thank you so much.
Thomas, I'll call it. John, you are up first, my friend.
Thanks, Alice, and thank you, Irene, for a beautiful share. My question is, if you've experienced this, how do you pray when you don't feel like praying, or when the prayers almost feel like forced, like it's just a routine? You're saying the same prayer over and over again, and you just don't have that same connection that you strive for.
Uh, Sometimes, like I said, I have a routine, so I do that. But if it's just feeling like rote, I will go to a place that I love. I love forests, I love creeks. I will, I live near the bay, San Francisco Bay, so I will see that. I love like how the light is shimmering through leaves, and I will have that connection with my higher power that way, and I'm like, and again, sometimes, I've been very lucky that I've been asked to speak sort of frequently this past year. It really reminds me of what it used to be like. And I'm like, oh my God, I gotta pray. I gotta show some gratitude here because, like I said, like maybe because it is my birthday, but um, I I have to show that gratitude and that again, I'm not the one keeping myself sober. That I suffer from alcoholism, which says I do not have a disease, or that I can figure it out. I can figure out how not to drink, that I will protect myself from drinking. And that's, totally false. Only my higher power can protect me from that first drink. So I really got to pray. And when I don't feel like it, when I feel like something, like I'm having a hard time, also just reaching out to someone too, about a year ago, I was diagnosed with macular degeneration and I have to get a shot in my eye. I'm going to get one tomorrow. And believe me, I called my sponsor because I was like total panic. I was like pissed off. I was angry at God. But I reached out to my sponsor and we prayed together. So those are things that have helped me get out of the refusal to pray and to meditate. Is sometimes I just need to be there with, with another human being, and we can pray together. And I've been really very fortunate that I've had some AA sisters where I'll say, I'm afraid about this, what's going on. She'll say, let's just pray together. And we're on the phone and we're doing, the third step prayer on over the phone. And just being willing to tell someone, I don't feel like praying. That for me is a lot, is progress for me.
Mhm. John, thank you for joining us with a question, and Irene, thank you for a beautiful answer. Lucky Lorraine, you are up next.
Thank you, Alice, for taking the Q&A and everybody for the meeting. Oh, Irene, I love hearing you. The first time I heard you was when I was online at that Women's International Conference. And it was so great to hear you. And then subsequently, I think one of your sober sisters just celebrated 36 years too on the 16th. Yeah, that is right. I am right. Okay. Happy birthday. Oh my God. 36 years. What? I always ask the same question. What did you do in the morning? Like what books do you read or your meditation books or like what are you into these days? Because I'm 3.5 years in and I've changed all kinds of things in that 3.5 years. And so I'm just wondering, what are you reading these days?
Uh, well, I read the daily reflections, uh, and I also read, um, it's that old, it's that, oh my God, I have it in front of me. I can't remember. It's upstairs. It's it's a little black book that was put out by, it's non, AA approved, but we had it before the daily reflections came into existence. So I'm so used to reading it. I will also read the big book, like upon awakening, like what am I supposed to focus on? But I also cheat ahead and I say, okay, reviewing the day ahead, where did I fail? Because I don't want to fail. So I read about, when I go to bed at night, where was I selfish, self-centered, fearful? I look at all that because I'm like, okay, there are going to be some little traps throughout the day, maybe. This is what I have in store for the day. This is where I can get off-centered. God, please help me direct my thinking of how I can be of service, how I can be useful to you. And I read that, and then at the Women's International, I got two books. One I really am enjoying. It's called The Power of Pause, and I really have enjoyed that. And it's been great. Again, not AA approved, but it's been really so if I can do all those things, but some days I'm just reading just one because I'm out the door. I have to go somewhere and I'm like, then throughout the day, I will go back to and like, oh, I forgot to get to that, reading. So that's how I usually will start my meditation and prayer.
Thank you, Irene. There was a question that's related in the chat from Emily about what you read, and I think you have covered what you read. Is there any other books that you'd like to recommend to people before we go to Calvin?
Uh, no, I mean, I think those are the one. I mean, I really am. I mean, not to say a big book thumper, but I love the big book, and it maybe because I was in and out, and I really never read the big book, even during those 4 years of sobriety. I hold on to that, and I really I memorize that stuff all the time, all those pages. I just want to be able to look at that and focus on that. So that's what I do. So thank you.
Thank you. Calvin, please come in.
Hello, everyone. My name's Calvin. I'm an alcoholic. And Irene, what a great job. And you know, you touched me when you talked about having a friend that you envy and you get into it with him or whatever. I got a friend that we go through the same thing, and we've been doing it for years and for a long time. And he jab at me, I jab at him back. And he knows the big book well. I know it pretty decently. He know the traditions. I know the he know the concept. I know the concept, and we know both know the history pretty well. So we kind of, and the day something came out, he was sitting next to me in a open meeting, and we were sitting next to each other, and it started. But after it started, Irene, something just told me, "You stop,
Mm.
you stop it, Cal." And I did, and I stopped. And I'm doing a workshop, and I'm on the third step in this workshop I'm doing, and And I asked him, I said, help me. What is your vision of the third step? I would have never asked him nothing like that before because I surrendered. I don't need to. By this time, sanity has returned. I quit fighting anything, anybody. And it came to me clearly. And when you talked about your friend, if you could tell me a little bit more about that. So I would appreciate it. Thank you, Irene. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Calvin. Yeah, he doesn't even know I have that I'm envying him. So, so, uh, so he's someone I work with. He's also in the program as well, and he did really well at work. He kept getting promoted and promoted, um, and during COVID, that's one of those things that happened. Was like, and I now have made peace with it. Maybe due to some of my illnesses or whatever, I had asthma, whatever. I didn't show up to work. I was doing, remote work, but these guys were showing up, and he was, so he kept getting promoted. And, they had to make a business decision and they sent me to, I think like a place for me it was like Timbuktu, really far away, So I got pissed off about that. And I got pissed off at him and he wasn't even involved in the decision making of that. Um, but when I see him on Zoom or whatever, or I hear his talk, I will say, God, that was a great talk. Really good. Instead of me not wanting to talk to him or whatever, and he did nothing wrong. But it's my own head. It's like because I'm very competitive, and I will say, God, it's unfair. But you know what? He showed up and I didn't. I'm like, that's a simple answer to, my feeling of God, why did he get promoted and I didn't?
Mhm.
Um, and it's just, you know, and I can just say, hey, good job, or congratulations. And he doesn't have to know, hopefully he's not on this Zoom. He doesn't have to know that I had any envy, that I was envious of him. Because it's such a horrible feeling to feel envious of your friends. I mean, it's one thing to feel envious of strangers, but people that you care about, that you love, that have known for over, many years, over 20 years or so. I was like, it's a horrible feeling. And it is painful. I like how the 12 and 12 talked about painful envy. Um, that was what was going on with me. So that's it.
Thank thank you. Thank you for the question and the answer. Carol, please come in.
Hi, everyone, and happy birthday, Irene. You mentioned a couple of things, and I'm not sure I got the first one totally right, but you said something along the lines of, I have to be loving to be loved, and that being alone is a disservice to God. So I get into places where loving myself is the last thing that I can do. And, I also have a personality that allows people to just open up and tell me their life stories within knowing me a couple minutes. And, we were recently on vacation in an area where we always go to meetings, and I had no desire to go and be around these people that I always enjoy. Um, I just find myself kind of that isolation, doing some Zoom meetings and all, and feeling like, oh yeah, I'm doing the deal, when I know deep down inside I'm not. But so I appreciated you sharing on that too. But how do you love yourself when you just don't even feel like you have any love to give?
Um, I think it's just doing those actions that we were taught, I was taught when I was new. And I give you a story. I remember my first sponsor, she was um, wonderful, popular speaker, and people would always hang out with her after the meeting. So I saw that and I didn't even say goodbye to her because I just assumed that, she really doesn't have time for me. I have nothing to bring to anything. So I'm feeling very low. And so the next day she calls me and says, you really hurt my feelings by not saying goodbye to me, that you didn't even bother to, say goodbye. And I just thought to myself, like, well, I just thought that I'm not needed, that I'm not worthy. And I don't know that I'm actually impacting other people by my low self-worth, that I'm not being there to support them, to be there for them. that it's all about myself, that I am not worthy to be in your same space, And that's what I meant when I think it's a disservice to God and to my fellows when I don't own up to, what I do, have something to give, that I am worthy, that I, not just being worthy, but I have something so that I can, help you, that I can, be there for you, that I can maybe lessen some of your hurt and pain, or bring you joy as well, that we can have, a good time and laugh or whatever. And again, like I said, I'm not going to be Miss Social Butterfly. I'm not extroverted. I'm not someone who's going to say, the great joke or whatever. But there are times where I will share about something, in meetings and people will laugh. And I never knew that I had a sense of humor, but people will laugh about something and I will bring them joy. And for me, not to be, to isolate, to only do Zoom. I mean, Zoom has been wonderful especially during the pandemic. But for me personally, I need to get out of Zoom and to be around other people because I can easily get into bad habits on Zoom. I could be off camera. I can be looking at my phone. And those are just for me. And it will be like, well, I made a meeting, but for me, it's not as intense as being in person, and so that's why I went to my noon meeting today, so that I could be in person and see what's going on with the other people, and especially the people who are struggling, the people who, a newcomer who decided to just take off and go to a secluded cabin. I'm like, okay, that's not going to be the solution because I know I've done that and it's not the solution. So I think for me, isolation really is a disservice to, God's, and to my fellow, people here. You're my brothers and sisters, and when I'm not with you, it's a disservice to you.
Hmm. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Andrew, I'm always thrilled when you put your hand up. Please come on in.
Good evening, beautiful souls all. I'm an alcoholic. My name is Andrew. I moved further north, not to be further away from y'all. It's just how things happened. Um, Thank you, Irene. This business of I'm not a fan of the 12 and 12, to be perfectly honest, but there are some gems in there. Thank you for picking out this where Bill goes, well, now let's just take a look at this. Make me a channel. Thinking, I have to be careful with this in meditation, prayer, aloneness with this creator. I cannot make demand. I realize that sacred space, and I'm grateful to be in it, in that prayer and meditation. But I'm mostly grateful is that I get a feeling of nearness. I don't know whether at any time I will be made a channel for anything. I have been certainly a conduit for ouch, that hurts. Oh my God, the move's been titanic and painful. And I was told twice in about 25 days that I had an attitude problem. And I thought, well, if you had my physical pain, and then I realized, no, I do have an attitude problem. People that aren't in the program who have known me for a while had to mention this. Self can't see self. And so when I go into this prayer and meditation, I'm asking Creator, who knows me best, to listen to my pain. And hopefully that pain can then become a channel for somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way I look at it now. Thank you, Fellowship of the Spirit and team, all us and everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, Andrew.
We have time for one more beyond Sammy. If somebody has a burning desire to ask a question, Sammy, you are up.
Thank you so much. Congratulations, Irene. I wrote this down because someone I'm sponsoring, how she has struggles with this. You said that you were a chronic relapser until you truly surrendered. And I was wondering um, what did the surrender look or feel like that was so different this time?
Great question.
I think I was just willing to look foolish, look stupid, that I was willing to ask for help. One of my stories is that I would call people from a liquor store when I was maybe about a year sober, calling a friend of mine. Her name is Shauna. And I called and I said, you know what, you've been really kind to me, but I can't do it. I can't stay sober. For some reason, I called, even though it was embarrassing that I was at the liquor store, because I feel like you all know how to stay sober. You don't even think about drinking. Here I am, a total loser. I'm always thinking about drinking. What's wrong with me? And in that moment, I was willing to ask for help. And for me, it's not just um, asking, it must have been a God moment because normally I would have gone and bought, the booze or whatever. But in that moment, I must have said, God, just help me. And I called, and back in those days, we had payphones, and my friend, said, no, don't do anything. I'll meet you for lunch. And she met me for lunch. Um, and another time I called her and I said, I want a drink right now. I can't take it. And she said, let's just get down on our knees. She's Jewish, and usually that's not their custom to get down on our knees. But she said, let's get down on our knees and ask that this obsession to drink be removed. And we did that. And again, it felt foolish, it felt stupid, but I was willing to do anything. And I think that was for me the surrender of, okay, I don't know how to do this, so I'll do it your way. And by the time I was 2 years sober, that obsession to drink was gone, and it was a total miracle. And the funny thing about it is that I shared that story. I didn't know my friend Shauna was at the International San Diego Convention, so I mentioned her name. Usually I don't. I mentioned it at the International Women's Convention, and she came up to me after the meeting. I hadn't seen her for like 20 years, and it was just amazing that I got to hug her and thank her and just being willing to like surrender and just say, I can't do it. I don't know how to do it. I'm asking for help. That's how I did it. Or God did it, really. Yeah.
Mhm. So
Thank you.
I'm gonna jump in quickly with the question before I turn it back over to Michelle. I really appreciate your reading, Irene, and you talked early on in your talk about being fit. And so my note says the purpose is to be fit to serve, not to feel good. Because you're like, I think I'm gonna pray and then I'm gonna feel good, but no, that's not it. Would you say just a little bit more about serving versus being rewarded with good feelings?
Again, I think it's just one of my first sponsor used to talk about, I can't change my attitude, just thinking, okay, I'm going to be peaceful. I'm going to be serene. I'm just going to do it on my own. And, it doesn't work that way. For me, I have to take action. And this whole program is one of action. Um, and I love the fact that it's not just so that, the reward is not just to just feel good and like, because if I just feel good, then I'll do what I normally do, which is feel good. I'm out of here. Why do I have to continue doing it? No, the reward is so that I can be there for others. And then a byproduct of that, and in fact, I think the next paragraph of this 12 and 12 was talking about the fact that, it's to the point where, what was he talking about? See, I lost it, but I think it was talking about like he also hopes that he can get the same benefits, but that's not why he's doing it, He's doing it so that he can, just that self-forgetting. Like as soon as I forget about myself, I'm at peace. And that's not what I thought I was wanting to do. But by being there for other people, being fit spiritually for you. For some reason, when I'm fit spiritually for you, I'm at peace. And that's not what I thought I wanted. It's like like I said, I still have to practice this. And constant thought of others, I again is like, oh my God, what an order. I can't go through with it. But I really have to keep emphasizing constant thought of others is what I have to do. because or else I'm a loser, I will lose this in a minute. So thank you so much, Alice, for asking that question and for asking me to be here.
Absolutely. Happy birthday. Happy birthday.
Thank
And
you.
Michelle, back to you.
Thank you, Alice. I see that